My wife's parents insist that I sleep on the couch because I cannot share a bed with my wife while we are in their house. Now, they demand that I apologize for booking a hotel and leaving. My wife and I got married last summer. Her family lives across the country from us, so up until now, I had never actually visited them, but I had met them a handful of times, and we've always gotten along fine. They invited us to visit and stay with them for a few days, and we took them up on the offer. We flew in yesterday, and everything went well. Her dad and I watched football while she caught up with her mom and sisters, and then we had a nice dinner. But things went south at the end of the night when it was made clear that they didn't want me sharing a bed with my wife while in their home and expected me to sleep on the couch. At first, I thought they were joking, but they insisted we sleep separately. I had a problem with the implication that I shouldn't be allowed to sleep next to my wife. I also have a bad back, and the couch did not look the least bit comfortable. They don't have a guest room. After arguing back and forth, I decided to leave and book a hotel. I told my wife she didn't have to come with me. She chose to stay, and I said I'd return the next day. I went to a Marriott about 10 meters away and slept well, trying not to let the whole situation bother me. I called my wife this morning, asking when I should come by. She told me her parents wanted me to apologize for leaving like I did. I told her I was willing to apologize to keep the peace, but they needed to acknowledge that it wasn't appropriate to insist I couldn't share a bed with my wife. She said she'd talk to them and call me back. About 10 minutes later, I heard back from her, and she told me that not only would they not apologize for it, but they were now insisting I needed to come back and stay on the couch for the rest of our visit. And if I don't agree to this, I'm not welcome back in the house. I'm pretty livid at this point. I told her there was no chance I would do that, and I was no longer willing to offer any sort of apology. My wife's sisters are now bothering me, saying this is just how their parents are, that my wife is very upset, and that I need to give in and stay on the couch for the rest of the trip before this turns into a family feud. From my perspective, I don't care what they think, and I'm willing to treat the rest of this trip as a solo vacation, go sightseeing, and meet my wife back at the airport at the end of the week. Update: I asked my wife and her sisters to meet me for dinner apart from their parents. It was interesting. After we sat down, I talked to them about what had happened. I asked my wife if she knew her dad was going to demand we sleep separately, and she said she was also surprised by it. She'd expect that if I were still just her boyfriend, but we're married now. I then asked them if they thought it was okay for their parents to act like they did. They said it wasn't, but they know their father, and it's best just to let things like this go. This led to a somewhat uncomfortable conversation about how controlling he can get, how he angers easily when he doesn't get his way, and that he was already throwing a fit over me disrespecting him by leaving. They were all trying to get me to come back and apologize because he would find some way to make them all miserable for the rest of the week if I didn't. I told my wife I was disappointed she wouldn't side with her husband when I was clearly in the right, and she went quiet. I then asked if they thought this was even about house rules because their dad was just trying to show me who was in charge. They agreed. Up to this point, I had done everything I could not to escalate this situation, but I started to get mad that they were all so afraid of how their dad would react. I decided I needed to push back a bit. My wife was mainly here to spend time with her sisters, whom she rarely sees, so I told them I would move to a hotel by the beach about an hour away in San Diego for the rest of the week, and I'd book a second room for them if they wanted to all join. They don't get to go on trips much, so I figured they'd be excited to get a free vacation away from their parents. They know that their dad will probably freak out when they leave, but I think they realized the situation had gone too far, so they decided to come and deal with the fallout afterward. So that's where this all stands for now. I'm about to leave my hotel and hit the road for San Diego. My wife and her sisters come down in a separate car after their parents leave for work. I fully expect their dad to throw a fit when he finds out they left without telling him, but I don't care now. At every turn, I try to be the bigger person, but he pushed this too far.